Second, we must have a mechanism to review whether we are keeping our commitments. And exchange this information in a transparent manner. These measures need not be intrusive, or infringe upon sovereignty. They must, however, ensure that an accord is credible, and that we're living up to our obligations. Without such accountability, any agreement would be empty words on a page. I don't know how you have an international agreement where we all are. Not sharing information and ensuring that we are meeting our commitments. That doesn't make sense. It would be a hollow victory. Number 3, we must have financing that helps developing countries adapt. Particularly the least developed and most vulnerable countries to climate change. America will be a part of Fast Start funding that will ramp up to $10 billion by 2012. And yesterday, Secretary Hillary Clinton, my Secretary of State, made it clear that we will engage in a global effort to mobilize $100 billion in financing by 2020, if and only if it is part of a broader accord that I have just described. Mitigation. Transparency. Financing. It's a clear formula, one that embraces the principle of common but differentiated responses and respective capabilities. And it adds up to a significant accord, one that takes us farther than we have ever gone before as an international community. I just want to say to this plenary session that we are running short on time. And at this point, the question is whether we will move forward together or split apart. Whether we prefer posturing to action. I'm sure that many consider this an imperfect framework that I just described. No country will get everything that it wants. There are those developing countries that want aid with no strings attached. And no obligations with respect to transparency. They think that the most advanced nations should pay a higher price. I understand that. There are those advanced. Nations who think that developing countries either cannot absorb this assistance, or that will not be held accountable effectively. And that the world's fastest growing emitters should bear a greater share of the burden. We know the fault lines because we've been imprisoned by them for years. These international discussions have essentially taken place now for almost 2 decades. And we have very little to show for it other than an increased acceleration of the climate. Change phenomenon. The time for talk is over. This is the bottom line, we can embrace this accord. Take a substantial step forward, continue to refine it and build upon its foundation. We can do that, and everyone who is in this room will be part of a historic. Endeavor, one that makes life better for our children and our grandchildren. Or we can choose delay, falling back into the same divisions that have stood in the way of action for years. And we will be back having the same stale arguments month after month, year after year. Perhaps decade after decade, all while the danger of climate change grows until it is irreversible. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no time to waste. America has made our choice. We have charted our course. We have made our commitments. We will do what we say. Now I believe it's the time for the nations and the people of the world to come together behind a common purpose. We are ready to get this done today, but there has to be movement on all sides to recognize that it is better for us to act than to talk. It's better for us to choose action over inaction, the future over the past, and with courage and faith. I believe that we can meet our responsibility to our people, and the future of our planet. Thank you very much. Barack Obama. United Nations meeting address on Ebola outbreak. Delivered September 25, 2014, New York, New York. Mr. Secretary General, thank you for bringing us together today to address an urgent threat to the people of West Africa. But also a potential threat to the world. Dr. Chen, heads of state and government, especially our African partners, ladies and gentlemen. As we gather here today, the people of Liberia and Sierra Leone and Guinea are in crisis. As Secretary General, Ban and Dr. Chan have already indicated, the Ebola virus is spreading at alarming speed. Thousands of men, women, and children have died. Thousands more are infected. If unchecked, this epidemic could kill hundreds of thousands of people in the coming months. Hundreds of thousands. Ebola is a horrific disease. It's wiping out entire families. It has turned simple acts of love and comfort and kindness like holding a sick friend's hand. Or embracing a dying child into potentially fatal acts. If ever there were a public health emergency deserving an urgent strong and coordinated international response, this is it. But this is also more than a health crisis. This is a growing threat to regional and global security. In Liberia, in Guinea, in Sierra Leone, public health systems have collapsed. Economic growth is slowing dramatically. If this epidemic is not stopped, this disease could cause a humanitarian catastrophe across the region. And in an era where regional crises can quickly become global threats. Stopping Ebola is in the interest of all of us. The courageous men and women fighting on the front lines of this disease have told us what they need. They need more beds, they need more supplies, they need more health workers. And they need all of this as fast as possible. Right now, patients are being left to die in the streets because there's nowhere to put them and there's nobody to help them. One health worker in Sierra Leone compared fighting this outbreak to fighting a forest fire with spray bottles. But with our help, they can put out the blaze. Last week, I visited the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Which is mounting the largest international response in its history. I said that the world could count on America to lead, and that we will provide the capabilities that only we have. And mobilize the world the way we have done in the past in crises of similar magnitude. And I announced that, in addition to the civilian response, the United States would establish a military command in Liberia to support civilian efforts across the region. Today, that command is up and it is running. Our commander is on the ground in Monrovia. And our teams are working as fast as they can to move in personnel, equipment, and supplies. We're working with Senegal to stand up an air bridge to get health workers and medical supplies into West Africa faster. We're setting up a field hospital, which will be staffed by personnel from the U.S. Public Health Service. And a training facility, where we're getting ready to train thousands of health workers from around the world. We're distributing supplies and information kits to hundreds of thousands of families so they can better protect themselves. And together with our partners, we'll quickly build new treatment units across Liberia. Guinea and Sierra Leone, where thousands will be able to receive care. Meanwhile, in just the past week, more countries and organizations have stepped up their efforts, and so has the United Nations. Mr. Secretary General, the new UN mission for Ebola emergency response that you announced last week will bring all of the U.NS resources to bear in fighting the epidemic. We thank you for your leadership. So this is all progress, and it is encouraging. But I want us to be clear, we are not moving fast enough. We are not doing enough. Right now. Everybody has the best of intentions. But people are not putting in the kinds of resources that are necessary to put a stop to this epidemic. There is still a significant gap between where we are and where we need to be. We know from experience that the response to an outbreak of this magnitude has to be fast and it has to be sustained. It's a marathon, but you have to run it like a sprint. And that's only possible if everybody chips in, if every nation and every organization takes this seriously. Everybody here has to do more. International organizations have to move faster. And cut through red tape and mobilize partners on the ground as only they can. More nations need to contribute critical assets and capabilities, whether it is air transport, or medical evacuation, or healthcare workers, or equipment, or treatment. More foundations can tap into the networks of support that they have, to raise funds and awareness. More businesses, especially those who already have a presence in the region. Can quickly provide their own expertise and resources, from access to critical supply chains to telecommunications. And more citizens of all nations can educate themselves on this crisis, contribute to relief efforts. And call on their leaders to act. So everybody can do something. That's why we're here today.